Welcome to another episode of Totally Detailed Podcast. I'm one of the co-hosts, Adam Blackwell, and I'm joined with Richard, the other co-host from Leather Repair Company. If you want to say hi, Richard.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? How are you, Chris?
Not bad. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
You
Good.
jumped the gun again, Rich. We
Have
haven't even introduced him. You're saying hi to him.
Oh, okay then. Shall we start again then?
No. So we've got a very secretive guest, we'll call him now. We've known Chris for probably about a year now, I think, Chris, isn't it?
Yeah, got me around there, yeah.
In and out,
I tend to stay out of the way, sit in my own corner and keep quiet normally.
It's all lies. As you'll get to know Chris across this interview. He may go into a Tourette state, but we'll try our best not to.
Best behaviour.
So Chris is one of the co-owners of the Classicwise Collection based in Newark. One reason I wanted to have Chris on, apart from him being fantastic at what he does, is it's a totally different way of business compared to a normal shop like myself or what Richard has. We'll go into that later into the episode. But we'd like to start these things off with the same question. So, what made you get into the detailing industry? Was there a certain memory that sparked something for you?
Not really, no, to be honest. I've always been sort of a keen car cleaner. I've spent most of my life around cars, so my sort of main background was with a company called TR Enterprises in Blidworth, restoring old classic Triumph TRs, the old sports cars from the 50s, 60s and 70s. In the body shop there, I went through all the usual processes of scratching freshly painted panels with old rags and what was then, I think it was National Motor Products A-grade polish by hand. Wow. It sort of progressed in a bit further when I got my first car. So always went to shows and things like that. And then, as I've sort of got further and further and further into it, realized how wrong I was doing it. And there's something about detailing and the finer details in cleaning cars that settles my OCD a little bit and sort of helps me focus on one thing rather than my brain doing a million things at once.
There is something quite like level-minded about doing detail. I always find you can go to quite a nice little place in your mind.
Yeah, it's lovely. Like I said, it gives me a sense of just being able to show the rest of the world out for however long it takes me that day that I'm working on that one job, and then sort of lets me calm down and forget about things. And I just seem to get into a groove, and next thing I know, I'm 2 hours late going home to my wife and kids.
Trying to think of a good cover story on the way home.
I would blame traffic, but apart from a couple of tractors, there's not really much.
What was your first car, Chris? Sorry, interrupting there. What was your first car? Obviously, that's when it all began. What was your first car?
It was a 1998 1.8 Vauxhall Vectra.
Nice.
Purely because I fell in love with it. It was owned by someone else in the club at the time. And I was doing my A-levels, and I said to my dad, my dad had got one, and we'd done bits to that, modified it slightly as you did back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And saw it at this meet, and I said, I'm properly in love with that car. I want something like that for my first car. So I went to Russia, as you do, with school, because I studied Russian history at A-level. And when I come back, the car was on the drive, and my parents had bought it for me. And they said, look, if you want this car on the road, you have to pass all your exams, get a job, and pay for the tax, insurance, and the fuel yourself. We've got you the car, but you have to pay for everything else yourself. So like, yeah, quid's in, really easy. And then I tried to insure it, and it was $3,000 third party. So it took, I think it was just under a year before I'd saved up enough money to insure the following year.
Yeah. How old was you at this?
I was 18.
Yeah, we're gonna get.
I was in my final year of A-levels.
Yeah. So are you a bit of a car fan then?
Always have been, yeah. I don't know why. it seems to be me sort of part of the black sheep of the family with that kind of thing. Everyone else in the family didn't really care until my dad got his first sort of high performance car, if you like, for general public. He got quite a limited edition V6 Vectra, and something went wrong. So I don't think it was Google then. I think it was still AOL, and this website popped up, this old forum. So we joined, and it kind of went from there. And my dad started getting into the cars a bit more and things like that. And it was something that me and my dad bonded over quite a lot. And then it just escalated from there. When I, work experience, I went to TR Enterprises, and the very first thing I did was take a rear axle out of Triumph 2000 saloon. So kind of always loved working on cars and being around them.
Yeah, always been a part of it.
Yeah, always.
So, you touched on it earlier about using cloths to wipe down cars and scratching them while you're doing it. Do you kind of cringe now when you look back thinking how you used to turn things out?
100%. So typical body shop thing. And back then it weren't even 3M, it was Ferekla back when I was in the body shop. So it was G3, G5. And then we got a load of old cut-up T-shirts from a local rag company. And so we'd painted the panel, we'd baked it off, given it a couple of hours to cool down, and then we were literally going over with, I think it would have been 3M machine polish. Back then, I think it's blue top now, but it was black top originally. And then we went over with this A-grade polish, thinking it was, protectant.
Yeah, surprised how many people do though. I think that polish is protection.
Yeah. There's quite a few, and obviously with dealing with all the classics that we do here, we get a lot of old boys that are still using, SRP. I've just protected my car for 6 months. It makes it right shiny and all of this, and it's like, okay. You have to sort of be polite and just nod and say yes until they ask the questions of what I do, and then it's a fine line between explaining enough so they get the point without them glazing over.
Yeah,
you tend to get that quite a bit.
Yeah, I've seen that look a few times. There was one woman who phoned me who wanted information about microfibers, and Richard will tell you I'm a microfiber geek. She couldn't wait to get off the phone. Bless her. So, you've just started to touch on it then about the Classicwise Collection.
Yeah.
Just want to explain to everyone what that is, because it is a totally different to a normal detailing shop.
It is. So originally Classicwise, for short, was started by my business partner and majority owner, Sam. He had quite a nasty accident in 2012. He ended up blind in one eye, 42 fractures to his face. He's practically titanium everywhere now. And he got a substantial payout in insurance because it wasn't his fault. And unlike most, I think he was 22 at the time, rather than spend it and get rid of it, he invested in property and things like that. And his dad was quite a well-known used car dealer. He imported Porsches and things back in the 80s and 90s. And he sort of just followed on from his dad with that. So rather than spend it on booze and things like that, he bought cars, and that progressed into a classic sales place. I initially came in, would have been 2018, beginning of 2018. And I went in as a sort of like a separate entity, if you like, as the detail room. And I got the contract with Sam where, once a week I'd go in and sort all his sales cars out for him around what I was doing. And it was working pretty well. We had quite a good thing going. He was selling more cars because the cars were looking nicer and things like that. And we sort of started going to shows. So we did the NEC Classic, we did Race Retro a couple of times and things like that. And when we started adding the storage side of things, it got a bit too confusing because we were trying to run each department, if you like, as a separate company. And it was just adding too much confusion. So would have been mid to late 2019, we discussed possible merger, where if I effectively sold all of the detailing side of things to Classicwise, I'd get shares in Classicwise in return. And at the time, I didn't want to, because it was my baby. I didn't want to get, didn't want to give it up, so to speak, because when you've got a fresh thing like that, it doesn't matter what the reward looks like. It's your baby. You don't want to get rid of it. So I sat down, had a think, spoke to my wife and my parents and things, and they were just like, you can either have 100% of not a lot, or you can have a percentage of what's a lot more, with the potential to grow into pretty much a one-stop shop. You have a car, you can do whatever someone wants you to do with it. And we put a 5-year plan into place to where we want to be, and we managed it in about 18 months.
Wow, so, that's some good going, isn't it?
Good.
Yeah, we weren't expecting it to go so well. So the detailing picked up massively in the area, much quicker than we expected, to the point where I was then starting to struggle to balance the detailing work and the sales stuff. And then when the storage came up, we sort of took on a small area to start with, thinking it wouldn't fill up that quickly. And it took about 6 weeks to get 20 cars in.
Wow.
So last August, we took over an old chicken shed. There was a chicken shed on the farm, and it had 15,000 free-range chickens in it. So it's quite a large area. And the owner decided that it didn't want to bother with the chickens anymore. So we were like, we want that building. So it literally was like chest high in chicken, as you can imagine. And by November, it had its first car in. And then before Christmas, it had 60.
What, so in a month?
Currently got.
So from November to Christmas, you went to 60 cars?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's awesome.
And then by the end of January, we filled both buildings. So we've currently got 125 cars with us. Again, that adds another full-time job, essentially. So as part of the storage deal, the customer gets a safe wash in and out free of charge, and they get a C-Tech conditioner on it and one of our branded covers, soft covers. As long as they give us 24 hours notice, we can get the car in and out for them, and that's pretty much how it works with that one. But again, when you've got so many cars, it's difficult to try and get in. Like today, we ended up getting the 812 Superfast out because it had been out at a show over the weekend, and we needed to clean it before it could go back on charge. On top of that, I had 2 Porsches to get out that we'd had in storage since that would have been October last year, and that's then 3 washes that we've got to try and do, on top of trying to sort a GT3 that Sam was delivering back today, on top of the T6 Transporter that's in for a 5-year coating this week.
Okay.
It's been quite full on, as you can imagine.
Are the cars all local, or are they from all over the country?
All over the country. So we've got quite a large collection from a Chinese investor who, as far as I know, has never been to the country.
Blimey.
We've got cars in from Norway. There's quite a few from France, places like that. The vast majority are localish. So there's probably sort of a 60-70 mile radius where the majority of them are from. But like I said, we go as far out as Chinese owners now that, like I said, as far as I know, have never been in the country.
That's pretty crazy.
It's amazing.
So how does it work with the storage then? Is it they're on like a year contract, or is it they pay monthly?
So they pay per week. So depending on how long they want the car in, they can either pay, they can pay us 2 years up front if they want, or they can have a monthly invoice. But the prices are set per week. And like I said, sort of adds to the workload a bit, because on top of everything else, we can offer to MOT it, because one of Sam's family businesses that his dad owned before he passed away, his mum runs now, is an MOT branch, an MOT chain called We Only MOT. Mm-hmm. And we work quite closely in partnership with TR Enterprises. So if there's any paint work, restoration work, service work, or anything like that, we can send out to them. And now with us having done the PPF training a couple of weeks ago, it's pretty much you can roll a car in, and whatever you need, we can do now. So it seemed to be the wisest thing to do, particularly during COVID. If you're not willing to adapt to your environment, then you've got a very poor business plan, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. So it's now like as close as can be to a one-stop shop. Yeah, that was the plan. So like I said, you can bring a car to us for storage, and we'll keep it in storage. If you think, oh, I've not seen it for 6 months, it's been in storage, I might as well sell it, we can sell it. And as part of that sale, we'll put it through a service. If it needs any remedial work like paint and things like that, we'll put it through that. Or if you just want it detailing, we can do that along with the PPF. Obviously, we can do the wheel refurbs, we can do the caliper repaints, can do all the leather recoloring and things like that. Thank you, Richard.
Okay.
Pretty much anything you could want to do with your car, we could fit in and get sorted.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think that's a really good business model, because it stops people going elsewhere and possibly getting that better deal or whatever elsewhere, and you lose them as a customer. You've got no chance of losing them.
No, and that's the only reason I did the PPF, because I've half done it in the past. I can get the almost like 4-inch wide strips of 3M boot protector, if you like.
Yeah.
Tried that in the past and I hated it. But then it got to the point where there was that much demand for it in the area. I was then recommending another local place to do the PPF, and I get on quite well with the owner. But one thing that was pointed out to me in the IDA chats was they're also a detailer. So how many detailing jobs are coming to me wanting PPF work, and I'm sending them to there, and then I'm losing the detailing work. So it's like, well, if it comes to that and I'm losing work, I'm going to have to bite the bullet and learn how to do the PPF side of things properly, and have a bash at that as well.
Who did you do your training with?
Ceramic Pro. So we've got
cool,
we've got the Cavacha in now, which is I think a pretty big deal. Again, particularly with the cars we have in. So there's a lot of guys who have classic Porsches, and they're always praying for stone chips and things. And particularly with some of the new stuff we've got in. So like I said, the 812 Superfast, we've got a Lamborghini Urus that we look after, things like that. They ideally straight out of the box could do with having PPF on, just protect them a bit.
That's brilliant.
Very good.
Absolutely brilliant. How many staff do you have working for you? Because I know you've just taken on a new staff. Well, I believe you have, anyway.
Yeah, so that's been part of the struggle, because we're not a big company. I know it sounds daft after everything we've just said. We're not that big of a company. So up until last month, it was just myself and Sam. And Sam, bless him, 90% of the time is driving somewhere around the country, delivering or collecting a car. So there's on site, there's pretty much just been me. And then I think it was the 17th last month, we employed Ellie, who is absolutely fantastic. The first thing I get asked is, why would you employ a female? And from what I've seen and what I've seen from sort of the equivalent male people of her age, she seems to have a much better eye for what we're looking for detail wise. And we've been really lucky with the fact that she's 25 and she doesn't, head in phone every 5 minutes like everybody else at that age. She gets cracked on and she does a fantastic job. She's relieved me of the sales prep and some of the storage prep as well. So it helps me sort of focus on all the detailing work, essentially, which is what I wanted to do in the first place.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Is it helping with your stress levels at all?
No, because it just it just that little thing in the back of my head is, if I could do that much by myself, how much could I do with two people? So even though she's coming to relieve the stress from me a little bit, I'm thinking, I just get up to speed a little bit quicker, I can get 2 of these in instead of just 1 a week.
I like it. So you got to be thinking though.
Yeah, you've got to think that way, definitely.
You've got to, and as much as it pains me to say it, my very first boss asked me a question, and he said, how many hours are there to a working day where you can physically make money? And I was 15 at the time, and I just sort of said 8 or 9. He went, no, there's 24 hours to a working day where you can make money.
Yep.
It just depends on how determined you are to get it. So I've always sort of lived by that philosophy since, and if I can get in, I'll squeeze it in.
Yeah, there's always 24 hours. It's a work balance, isn't it, between private life and work as well, I suppose, with family and kids.
Yeah, and I have the most amazing wife for that. She's been very patient, not once, but twice, trying to build companies up. So I've been very, very fortunate, and I've been trying to balance it out more now, because it got to the point where I blinked and my son was 2, and I'd missed the first 2 years of his life, and it was like, where did that go?
Hands up in there. Good daughters.
So yeah, so when my daughter was born a couple of years later, it was like, I'm going to make an effort now to make sure I'm home. So unless there's something drastic or an emergency job in, I'm home. And I try and do the nursery run as much as I can. So
that's like the good side to being self-employed, isn't it? You can do the school running in the morning and
yeah. Like I said, it helps having Ellie with us now, because it means I haven't got to worry about getting 3 storage cars out, 2 sales cars prepped, and a van detailed.
Yeah, just a little bit to do. So I mean, you touched on it already a little bit, Chris, about having to teach we'll call them the slightly older generation. Then we don't want to upset Rich, do we? So
no, not at all.
Steady on.
But yeah, I mean, I've been a part of the classic car scene for years and years, and it is an older crowd. I'm sure they won't mind us saying that about them. How do you find trying to explain the detail into them? Are they quite keen to take it on board, or are they more kind of, you can't tell me how to look after a car?
I think it depends on the type of owner, and i.e. the reason they've got the car in the first place, and down to the initial conversation you should be having with said customer on whether they like to maintain the car themselves or whether they want someone else to do it. That is literally one of the first things I ask. Do you like to clean your car at the weekend? Because most of the older folk like to take the car out as part of their routine on a Sunday to wash the car, come rain or shine. And if their answer to that is yes, then I try and talk to them a little bit about the processes of what we do, sort of point them in the right direction product-wise and things like that. But if they turn around and say, no, not interested, then there's no point wasting breath, because you'll just get that glazed look within 10 seconds.
I think it depends on the individual, doesn't it? I mean, it's like, if I was sort of going back nearly probably 20 years ago, when I was one of the first Zymal authorized detailers in the UK, we had a lot of features in like Mercedes magazine and stuff like that. And people that were coming to us were like ardent showgoers, even though they were, to me then, an older generation. But they were quite aware of things. And it was like just the beginning of like clay bar and all that sort of thing. There was only a couple of companies out there that were sort of really doing clay bars back then. But a lot of people were sort of used to this sort of term detailing, even though it's only sort of quite a modern thing now. But even back then, there was a lot of people. It depended who you got. Some people were okay, and then others were like, I want this concourse, and then others were like, I want the car to look really nice because it's going to be my everyday driver. But it was more the classic side of it. People, I found, they actually knew all about the detailing side of it because of how they cared for their vehicles. Do you find that as well, Chris?
To a certain extent, yeah. So you find, particularly within the last 5 or 6 years, they've sort of got onto the whole snow foam and the citrus pre-washes and the high alcohol glass cleaners and things like that. But to be fair, with the kind of cars that we have in, it's more of a 50-50 split between those that are stuck in the sort of routine way, if you like, for a nicer way of saying it, rather than willing to learn how to do it more effectively and more efficiently.
How many California Dusters do you see?
Hey.
I don't think I have, actually.
No, that's like the big thing I always see when you go to the car shows. I'm like, another California Duster.
Yeah.
No, I don't think. I don't think I have.
No.
Not in any of the storage cars, anyway.
Leather chamois, then. There must be a leather chamois.
No, I think they've cottoned on now that that's a swear word at our place, so they don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it. No, we used to sell one. Well, we still do actually. It's like we call it a Dougal dog, and it's like a copy of the California Duster. They sell like crazy. People still buy them today. They still sell like crazy.
Yeah. I get the idea.
Great idea.
Yeah.
But it's like one of those things, isn't it? It's like there's better ways around doing it.
Yeah.
There is, but again, it's all down to education, isn't it? And there's a reason that there's an old saying about you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Is it terps that they put on them? I can't remember now. Is it terps they put them on? Because it creates like the static, doesn't it, to lift the dust off, which is the whole idea of it. I think it's terps or something like that. They actually kerosene or something like that. They soak them in something like that. That's what the original California Dusters were. They were soaked in that. I'm sure it's something like that, and it creates the static, which is why you do it, because you're not actually rubbing it on the surface. You're actually literally just wafting it over the top. So the static is actually bringing the dust off. Is what the whole idea of it is to do.
All right.
Rather than actually putting it on the paintwork, the whole idea is to sort of just lift it across the surface, so the static lifts it off. And I think it's kerosene or something like that they soak them in to create that static charge when it goes over the surface to pull the dust off.
There we go.
There's still one customer of ours who has a very, very well used Triumph, and he tours pretty much all over the world with it, and he still uses petrol and a bathroom towel to clean his.
No.
Outside.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Wow, amazing.
Happens quite a lot, particularly in the classic sort of classic rallying events and things like that.
Yeah.
There's the fuel in the car. If there's any left in the can, they'll just get a cloth, put petrol on it, and wipe the car over, make it clean again. It's the quickest way of cleaning a car.
Not wrong.
Do they look good though? That's the thing.
They look good whilst they're on the first 300 yards of the event and things like that. And when they take pictures and stuff at the starts, the cars look fantastic. But horses for courses.
After a bit, they're not very good.
So when you're talking to these customers, do you have like a car that you keep aside in the collection to show them this is how good yours could be?
Not really. No, I tend to just sort of show them whatever's on the ramp at the time, whatever I'm working on, because I can't remember the last time the ramp was empty for more than 3 hours, to be fair. There's always something parked on it. And generally speaking, because of how dynamic the business is with, all three sides of it, the phone calls, the emails and things like that, there's always half a panel done, and it's really easy to show them under the lights rather than try to explain.
Yeah.
I have found with particularly the classic side of things, it's easier to show them rather than explain. Once they've seen the difference, they're then willing to listen to you talk, and they're more focused on what you're saying rather than just glazing over.
Yeah, no, I like to show the difference.
Yeah. Obviously, with the classics, it's different paint, isn't it, on the majority of them compared to modern? How do you get on with that side of it?
To be honest, nowadays it's rare to see a classic that is in its original paint. So a lot of them have been either restored in the last 20 years. So they'll be in a 2K solid, or they'll be in a more up-to-date cellulose paint. Or, you know, if they've been painted certainly within the last 15 years, they'll be in a modern water base and then the usual 2K lacquer. So it's fairly similar processes to what you do on you know, everyday cars now. You just find there's more of it to play with. And if on the odd occasion you do get a survivor car as such, so we had a TR6 in a couple of years ago called Saffy, because it was a very rare saffron yellow colour. And that was a survivor car, and it was documented even to the point they'd painted over a body washer in the boot. And then as they were assembling the car, the washer had come away. So in the boot, there was a yellow boot area with an oxide red primer washer mark where the washer had come off. All of that's documented. Stuff like that is really awkward because you don't know what that 2K solid is going to do. If it's original 2K, it's going to be very hard and very brittle. But if it's a fairly newish one, it's going to be really soft and sticky. The most difficult ones for me tend to be the pre-wars that are still in their original, like lead-based paints. Had one a few months ago. It was a 34 Bentley, and the owner had taken his car out the garage and decided, it's only dusty, I just want to water it, get the dust off. And it was 34 degrees last summer, so it's watermarked, and you can imagine how bad that watermarks, to the point you normally have to sand it out to get it out. And he bought it up, so I put it on the RAM and I set to with my usual go-to compounds. Water-based, fantastic, no dusting. Made it worse because the water base in the compound was doing the same as what the water from the tap did, as you'd expect, but you don't think of it till you do it.
Exactly.
So luckily I kept a few of my old Scholl compounds for a rainy day, because you never know. And luckily the solvents in that stuff just straight out. It was beautiful. But it was definitely, you know, heart in throat moment at that point when I'd gone over with the water-based stuff.
Challenging then. Quite challenging with the different paints, and very challenging for you.
Yeah, and you know, you guys know you don't know really what you've got to play with until you start.
No.
One very controversial thing I tend to say is that paint depth gauges are totally pointless unless you're spending $5,000 on one that can tell you the different substrates.
Yeah.
And I get quite a lot of stick for that, because they're saying, well, how do you know what you've got to play with? So that's okay if you've got a car that's less than 3 years old. But if you've got one that's, I don't know, 5 years old and it's been in a prang and they've painted the front wing, how can you tell me how much paint you've got to play with? And you can't, because it just tells you the distance from the steel to the gauge. And, you know, they then go for that, well, at least 40% of that's going to be lacquer. It's like, well, it's not though, is it? Because that body shop's going to have wet sanded that really cruddy gun finish out and then buffed it to its life. So you've probably lost half of that already.
Yeah.
I've still got one. I still use one all the time, purely because the one I use, it's the NTG Pro, so it does them fancy reports that you can send in a PDF. Color coordinates all the panels to see if it's bad or not, and it just another visual thing for the customer. Looks really professional, really helps. In terms of actual working, the Yoda method's still the best method. If you know what you're looking at the panel, you can tell when you get about to go too far with the lacquer. And if you've not learned that without technology, you don't need to be doing it.
It's the same sort of thing I say about with color mixing with the other side of it. I mean, yes, we've got apps and things to mix colors, but if you can't mix by eye, then you shouldn't really be doing the job, because you can't rely on technology. You've got to, it's the same with that, isn't it? You've got to learn that to know what you're doing. It's like you're talking about here with, you know, that Bentley, and it's a lot of people would have not known how to handle that. You've realized how to handle it. A lot of them would have been struggling and think they've actually ruined the paint completely, whereas you've been able to address that through experience, deal with it, and correct it as well. And it's having that experience, isn't it? And it's knowing how to do it. And there's a lot of it could almost sort of get onto a sore subject, but there's a lot of guys out there that would call themselves detailers when they're not really a detailer. You know, that aren't that sort of professional like you are, or, you know, others are, that could have ruined it.
I try not to throw the whole detailer term around if I can. I'm just a car cleaner, because there's that many people using the word detailer now to sort of introduce themselves to people. I don't want to be associated with that now. It's a bit like the ceramic keyword at the minute, where everything's ceramic. It's just, no, I'm just a car cleaner.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from on that. It does seem like just the latest buzz word, like the ceramic.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's
graphene as well. That's the
graphene. Yeah.
One, so
it's one thing that I really look forward to with the IDA, because they're really pushing for some kind of standard in the industry, because there's literally nothing at the minute that stops. I could get my 5-year-old some Maguire's products and get him to charge 10 quid to wash the neighbour's car, and he's a professional. And I think that needs addressing.
Yep.
As well as with the product side of things as well. It's too easy to, how do I put it nicely, take 2 waxes and put them in a pan on your hob and then put it in a pot and sell it.
Yeah, I think that all came about from homebrew stuff, didn't it?
Yeah. There are some fantastic homebrews out there, but for every one, there's probably a dozen that aren't.
Yeah.
But because they've got a lot of Instagram followers, they seem to be doing really well.
Do well, yeah. And it sort of leads on to the next one, doesn't it? It's like, how many people are out there actually manufacturing products when they just you know, so it's, the whole list goes on, doesn't it? It's sort of, you get into a whole complete minefield with it, couldn't you, with it, really? That's the standardization that needs to be set in the industry, with products, with the terminologies, you know, the people in it, the accreditations that you've got to go through, the exams that you've got to pass, you know, the skills validations and everything else. You know, it's the whole thing. It's got to set that standard, hasn't it, for everybody? And you've got to pass those to get in it. As simple as that.
Yeah. And you know, one thing I've noticed when talking to people about it is they see it as you having to prove to the IDA that you're worthy. And it's really not. It's the other way around. The IDA is trying to bring everybody up to the same level, because until you've got that same level, you can't then start approaching AQA to get an MVQ or whatever in detailing. Things like that would help businesses massively, because at the minute there is no apprenticeship or a detailer. No. So if you want to expand your business, you have to do it the most difficult and most costly way. Yep. Whereas pretty much anywhere else, you can get an apprentice on 3 quid an hour or whatever it is these days, and train them up to do the job. And in detailing, you can't do that because there's no formal qualification. So the quicker we can get to that with the IDA, I think the better. And like I said, with the products, I've spent 18 months making my own products. So I went to a chemical manufacturer and I said, I want to make these products. What can you do? And they sent me out their base products that they sell off the shelf themselves. And I went from there. I told them what I wanted adding, what I wanted taken away. Went through it all. And then by the time I'd actually got the first 6 products to where I wanted them to work for me, because, you know, when you make your own products, you make them to work for you rather than everybody else. Otherwise, you might as well just buy somebody else's. Yeah. There was that many people doing it. It was just like, there's no point. The market's completely saturated. And it's all right me saying mine are based more towards the classic side of things, but when you can get someone saying that theirs is better for half the price, because they've just bought the base product and slapped a sticker on it.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
It was kind of pointless.
It is a challenging one,
that. Very challenging, yeah, definitely.
It is. And
sorry, I just interrupted you there, but one I just wanted to say before I went off that is I do respect you for one saying that, and then two with the outcome of it. You know, rather than either going cheaper just so you can compete, just calling it a day. And I have a lot of respect for you, that Chris.
There's no point trying to compete with losing money.
No.
I'm in business to make money, not be internet famous, to be honest. It's on the back burner. We've not got rid of it completely, because I quite like the idea of, particularly with the sales cars, you can get kit bags with products in and things like that. I've been tempted to do something like that. So every time we sell a car, it has a kit bag in it with, Classicwise detailing products in, for example, because you can guarantee when they use it and they like it, they'll go, "Where did I get that from?" So then you've got your sort of core audience there wanting to buy your products, and that's sort of where you want to start to then steamroll outwards into the detailing community, where it's a bit more precise with choices and stuff like that. But to try and bring a new product in aimed at hobbyists and detailers at the minute, to me, it's totally pointless, waste of time.
Yeah, there's a lot out there, isn't there, on the market, really? Quite a lot to go from.
I feel sorry as well for the brands that do want to start a new business and they have got a fantastic product, but they don't get the interest because there's too many hype products out there that the fanboys are jumping on. And it's sad that, really. That we could be having this absolutely phenomenal product on the market, but it can't ever get to the market because costs and budgets, and it's pretty sad, really, when you start actually thinking about it.
It's mad, and it's like you'll know more than me because you know more about microfibers and things. But there's companies selling the same microfiber for 3 times the cost as what you can buy it direct from supplier. But because it's got a certain name on it, people are paying through the odds. Mm-hmm. So it's like when you then get approached by said supplier saying, "Do you want to sell our cloths? We can put your sticker on it." It's like, no, I don't need the hassle. Yeah. Why would I have 10,000 cloths turn up and then try and sit and sell them and compete with 10 other people selling the same cloth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you got that other side of things, that if anything ever did come out about these cloths and what they're doing, you're going to be labelled with that then.
Yeah. It goes back to the old Kirkland cloths from Costco.
Mm-hmm.
I used to use them religiously because they were cheap. And then I had a pack that one cloth scratched the paint out the bag, straight, brand new, pulled the label off, sprayed RPA on the panel, wiped the residue off, and it marked the panel. So I figured it might have just been a faulty cloth. They might have sewn the edges on wrong or something, and something got on it in packaging or something. So I bought another one. In that pack, there was 2 that did it. And then on the third pack, it was 5 that did it. And it was just like, I'm not bothering anymore. I'd soon have some high quality cloths that did the job rather than cheap out on ones that end up making you work twice.
And I think in the long run, they're not actually that much cheaper.
No. Particularly if you're a stockist as well. If you can get on good books with a recognized brand that sells cloths, you get a discount for being a stockist. So for me, I think my costs work out at like £1.50 for the 320 GSM ones. It's like, you can't really go wrong for a pack of 5 for £1.50.
No, it's pretty cheap.
That's good value.
Just looping it back around, because it's something that I'm really interested in, because the way we do things, when you're working on these classic cars, I mean, you touched on, you do things perhaps slightly different on the machine polishing side. On the actual, we'll call it valeting, car cleaning side of things, do you do anything different, or do you just treat every car as you would a modern car?
Exactly the same. Obviously, you've got to be fairly careful with convertibles, soft tops and things, because anything pre-1980 with a soft top is going to leak. But you just have to accept that it is going to leak, and you will be mopping up water out the seat or the footwell at some point. Other than that, no, it's exactly the same. I don't understand the tiptoeing around engine bays and things like that. As long as you're not directly pointing the pressure washer at a distributor or straight down the spark plug bores or anything like that, just pressure wash it. No point.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. People do seem to get a bit frightened when you pop the bonnet and start jetting away.
Yeah, I don't understand it. You can get it wrong, but worst case scenario is you get a pet dryer and you dry it out.
WD-40.
Same as the inside. You know, I use a TR4 as an example because I see quite a lot of those. Doesn't matter what you do with your pressure washer, if you get it on the glass at the top of the door, it will still go up over the glass and into the car between the hood and the top of the door glasses. It will do it. Same as when you're doing the outside of the car, they've got a little air vent on the front to feed the heater matrix. It will go in there and it will end up on the footwells. So there's no point trying to avoid it if it's going to do it regardless. You just get in and do the job. The quicker you accept that there is going to be water in places that you've got to deal with, the quicker it is to finish the job.
Have you looked at doing like a rinseless wash or a waterless wash, whichever way you want to put it? No.
Wouldn't even like think of trying it yet. I don't think the technology is there yet. To be honest, I don't. Maybe it's just my going back to the old timers way of thinking. Maybe I'm just stuck in the old timers way. I don't understand how you can have a product that removes dirt from paint without any form of water. Because if it's just down to lubricants, you might as well just put some snow foam in a bottle and spray that on in a like normal spray bottle. Don't add water to it, just spray lubricant on it. Clay lube, use clay lube, same stuff, and then wipe that.
I'm quite a big fan of the O&R for the classic stuff. Yeah, I recommend trying it, honestly.
I've not tried that one, to be honest, but like I said, I think it's where I start showing my age and I fall into that. This is how I do things. I'm not detouring out of it. So
yeah,
I don't want to be using something I can't trust.
when I come to see, because I am coming to see this collection, I'm going to bring you some O&R down, and I want you to try it. It'll change your life. You read it first.
I'll let you use it on my car first. My car's hammered, bless it, because it gets tested for everything. Whenever there's a product that I want to try, it goes on it. If anyone asks me to test a product, it goes on it. It's wearing all the PPF from the training day at the minute, and I'm literally testing that to its death. So I 800 grit it the other day just to see if it would self-heal with a heat gun, and it did.
Wow, that's impressive.
It took a while, took a couple of hits, but it did heal itself out. I think the ceramic at the top layer has failed because the water behavior is not there at all, but there is no marks on it now.
Awesome.
That's quite interesting. What do you drive now, Chris? Out of interest, bearing in mind what your first car was.
Vauxhall Insignia.
Still on the Vauxhall. Excellent.
Always Vauxhall. I think I'm on my last one now because this one cost a lot of money to keep going. I've gone for the VXR, so it's the big V6 turbo one, 4-wheel drive, and I've done a few bits to it. And I think I've broke it with trying to put too much power through it. So.
A bit like you, Chris. Can't leave things alone, but sometimes I wish I could.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, I'm sort of getting dags off the wife quite a lot at the minute because I've got this 2, 3, 4, 5 cars at home and only 2 on the road.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Not the best situation, is it?
No, not really.
What's your favourite car in your collection at the moment?
It's difficult to pick a favourite because it depends on era, to be honest. The one that I always found myself looking at was one that I had 2 of them on my wall in a poster as a kid, and it's a Lamborghini Countach. It was one that I detailed either back end of last year or beginning of this year. Currently for sale if you want to look.
I can look.
Cheap plug there. And it's beautiful to look at, and I can't stop looking at it, but it's terrible to drive, really now, as you'd expect from something of that age.
Yeah.
Possibly the most beautiful car we've got in is a Ferrari 250 Series 2 Pininfarina. It's fantastically beautiful, that car. Just how they made cars back then were just so much nicer to what we get now, to what we got in the late 90s. But then, you know, going through all the motorsport stuff, we've got quite a few X-Works Triumphs in, things like that. And I found myself liking the side screen cars, so sort of the mid to late 50s stuff more now. Whereas when I was younger and actually working on them and restoring them, I didn't really like them. I didn't look twice. As I've mellowed out a little bit, I'm looking back at these little side screen sports cars. I'm thinking, yeah, they're nice.
Isn't it weird how like things can change, eh?
Yeah.
Old age.
Old age. Old age, you.
Just got a question. I'm going off on one here, but and it's a thought I had a little while back. Say I'm like in the classic American scene and stuff, and stuff like Model Ts.
Yeah,
I get why people like them, but at the same time, I don't get why anyone would want one. And to me, it's that old boy generation that has them. And when these old boys pass on, I often wonder what's going to happen to these cars. And it kind of, you know, like people just stop wanting them because there's no one of that. I mean, to a degree, someone's always going to want one, but not as much as going forward to like the 30s and so on.
Yeah, well, I'd flip that back on you and say you can quite easily find any American of any age that wants a Model T Ford to chop the life out of it and stick a big V8 at the front.
A big V8 in it, yeah.
I'm one of them, so just one comes in.
No. I'm quite big on my Americana. I've always loved American stuff, and there's 2 American cars that I will own one day. Probably will get divorced at the same time, but I want a 96 Viper GTS because it was the first American car I saw, and it's really nice. I just don't quite know how I'm going to drive it on a UK road. And ultimate dream car would be a 67 Chevy Impala.
Nice.
But it has to be a 4-door.
Okay.
Can't be a 2-door. Got to be a 4-door.
Why?
So I prefer the look of the 4-door to the 2-door.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. There's someone out there. There is someone out there stretching a front door now on a 4-door, ruining your car.
There isn't really, because they're going up in price, the 4-doors.
Yeah, they are.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. I think it's because the 2-doors are getting that out of most people's price range now. So then it's like starts on the 4-doors, and it goes with like the generations as well. Like the 60s stuff got really expensive, and then the 70s stuff, and I think the 80s stuff just on that break now. And
starting to go
definitely. Some early 90s stuff as well. You know, we've seen, particularly with like the fast forward, so like the Escort RS turbos and things like that, they're skyrocketing at the minute. Some prices that they're going for. We sold a genuine Moonstone 3-door RS 500 Sierra last year, and that went for well north of 50 grand.
It's amazing. It's crazy money. It's I think
I soon have a Model T.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite ones is the Corvette with the coal scuttle back on it. 68s, I think they are. Big long bonnet, nice sort of coal scuttle back. Beautiful. I don't know. There's just something about that back on it. I think it's more a bit like the Jaguar XJS, I suppose. Sort of rear window shape on that, but it's a lot deeper to it. It's just, I think it's something about it. I think it's probably one of the second or third cars I think I ever drove on at a car auction when I was about 14 in America. And it's probably one of the reasons why it sort of stayed with me. You sort of fall in love with them. That great big long bonnet and huge engine in them. The sound of that engine. Amazing.
Quick question for Adam then. If you had to pick between a late 50s Chevy or a Ford Thunderbird? Which one would you go for?
I'm not a Ford fan.
No,
I don't mind the Thunderbird, to
good
be
lad.
honest. But try Chevys. Yeah, I'll take a 55. I don't like the 57. It's too blingy for my liking. But yeah, Chevy all the way.
That's the right answer.
Glad we agree.
I'm a Vauxhall man, so I can't say I want a Ford. I'll get a shot.
I suppose where you're buying your Vauxhall from, it could be American, couldn't it? With the Pontiac
Yeah,
and
so
all that.
well, yeah, the Insignia I think is a Buick Regal in the States.
It could be, yeah.
I think it is something silly, like that. I think it is.
Not that I'm sad enough to know stuff like that, but
it's amazing how many Ford Transit Connects they have out there as well.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing the amount of Americans that have got a Transit Connect that when I went out last year, and then what I've seen with different detailers and sort of technicians on social media, it's amazing how many have got them. And I think they do call it a Transit as well. They don't call it something different. It is still called a Transit, I believe. So it's amazing how many of them's got them, and they look just exactly identical to what we've got here.
Did not expect that over in the States because the size of some of their vans are dwarf most Range Rovers.
I know, exactly. Yeah, it's changed a lot from when I used to go over in, back in the sort of 80s and things. And sort of 90s. It's changed so much since then. Before it was just full of American cars. Now it's everything but American cars. It's unbelievable the difference in cars that's out there. All the different, BMWs. There's a lot of Toyotas and Hondas and stuff like that. And people are tuning Toyotas and Hondas like it's going out of fashion compared to the great big V8 American tanks. It's unreal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've sold quite a few out to the States recently. So we sold an XK120 and more recently a TR5 went out that way. There seems to be a reasonable following for quirky little underdog Brit cars at the minute over in the States. So it's something we try to keep an eye on just in case there is something that piques sort of a certain corner of America's attention that we may have access to sell pretty quick. But on the flip side, you see, there's plenty of Brits wanting American cars like me and Adam.
Yep. Yeah, I would always have an American car myself. So yeah, definitely. Always brought up around it. What was the car? There was a Rolls Royce, I think, recently that was been built. I can't remember who it was for, whether it was Jay-Z or someone like that. It was the most expensive Rolls Royce that they've ever built. £20 million, I think it was. I heard in the news a few days ago.
Where did they come up with 20 grand for it?
£20 million for this car.
Where did they come up with that sort of figure?
God alone knows. I don't know what they've done to it. It's probably, but it's the most expensive Rolls Royce that they've ever built. And I can't remember. I think it was, I don't know whether it was Jay-Z or Beyonce or one of them that had couples or whatever it was that had got this car built, and it's £20 million for this brand new Rolls Royce, most expensive one ever built.
Rolls-Royce prices today, I think that's only got 3 of the 5 options on it.
Probably, possibly.
So just popping it back over to detail because we're kind of sounding like a motor show now.
Comes with the name, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think we're all getting carried away. So what's next for the business? Obviously, you just started the PPF. Have you got anything like lined up in the pipeline for more expansion?
Yeah, so pretty much beginning of the year, we found out quite quickly that we need to double, if not treble, the size of the storage. Because with COVID, we got sort of put into this awkward position where we'd preempted people taking the cars out in summer, and then COVID hit and they didn't, but we'd already booked their spaces. So we'd ended up having sort of an extra 30 cars than we were expecting. And then when we thought, the restrictions had relaxed a little bit, people are going to take them out, the majority of them had decided that they quite like the flexibility of having the car looked after for them and then just coming to us to collect it, take it out for the weekend and bring it back, which is good for us because we earn money on it. Or it does mean that we've got no space now. the detailing side of things, we need more space. We have only got the one detailing bay, and ideally now we need 3 bays. So we need 2 for detailing and 1 specifically for the PPF. Or it's just time, money, and trying to figure out when we can afford the downtime more than anything. But again, with COVID playing sort of what it has done, we were quite fortunate where we didn't have to close. So the detailing side of things to the public did. We weren't allowed to detail public cars. And the whole farm, it still is now, to be honest, the whole farm from March last year was on total lockdown. So the gate was closed. You couldn't open it with the button anymore or anything. You had to put code to get in. And we basically just nailed through all the storage cars. Like I said, we've got 120 plus cars in storage at the minute. So we just basically approached the customers and said, whilst it's sat here doing nothing, would you like us to detail it, add a ceramic coating to it and things like that? But then the flip side to that is banks are doing really, really rubbish with interest rates. So people are just buying cars willy-nilly blind because they weren't allowed to come and physically see them up until recently. So we had a lot of turnover with the sales side of things. So we went from selling probably 3 or 4 cars a month to 1 month we sold nearly 20. Yeah. So it's been a big challenge trying to adapt around COVID. It's just trying to preempt where we're going to be, back end of this year, beginning of next year, if the demand's going to be the same or not, and if it's worth investing what essentially will be, a lot of tens, maybe, £100,000 in expanding to where we kind of need to be to what we can comfortably achieve, and hope that, the demand's still there end of this year, beginning of next year, to fill up the storage, have all the detailing work come in. And should the banks decide to start playing ball properly and earning money in, interest accounts and stuff again, we might start losing car sales again. It seems to be the one of 2 things that do really, really well when the banks aren't. It's gold prices and classic cars.
Yeah, I can't see them doing anything with interest rates for a few years, to be honest, with the economy being still quite fragile.
I don't know. I think that they might pull a blinder come next April. It's like with house prices. House prices have gone up 11%, I've heard today, over the last year, which is great if you're lucky like me, where you're quite high up on what you paid for the house. But at some point, that's going to come right back the other way, because the banks are banks. They're greedy. They've got to earn money, and they'll only earn money off people like me and you.
I mean, houses at the moment are selling so fast, it's unbelievable. I mean, people, can't even get a for sale sign up and it's gone.
Yeah.
It's staggering.
We were getting leaflets through the door beginning of last year, basically saying, people want to live in your area, would you sell your house? And we were getting one maybe every fortnight come through for a solid 6 months.
That's amazing. It's crazy. On the car side of it, obviously you mentioned there you got the car sales. How many cars do you have in stock that obviously Classicwise own that you sell out?
At the minute, like I said, we've been doing quite well with it, because normally we work on a sale or return. So a customer wants to sell their car, we'll do all the prep work, we'll sell the car in return for a percentage of the total sale value. But as we've done so well, rather than, usual things, spend the money on stuff we don't really need, we've put it all into stock and cars and things. So we've probably got 40 cars in stock that are owned by us. And there's probably another 30, 40 cars that are owned by other people that we're selling on behalf for.
Yeah. And is that on top of the storage cars as well?
That's on top of the storage cars, yeah.
Bloody hell. That's some cars then, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Well, luckily, I'd say probably 10 or 15 of those owned cars, owned by other people that we're selling for, live within a 20-minute drive. So they sort of took them back, thankfully, so we had space.
Yeah.
But we're quite fortunate with where we are. It is in the middle of nowhere, but there's a lot of farmhouses. There seems to be a lot of capita in the area that particularly at the minute people want to get rid of. There's a lot of listed buildings in the area that need renovations and stuff, so there's trying to sell off a few assets, and usually it's the car that goes first because that's the easiest thing to shift. You can literally just wheel it out the garage and it's gone. Like I say, it's just more understanding your environment. You've got to do more listening than talking, to sort of know where your place is in where you are and what you can offer people around you, rather than doing the whole look at me, I can do this for you. You should really be making people aware of who you are without being too pushy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Obviously the detailing industry, how are you finding it at the moment as overall in general, the whole industry itself, is it booming? Is it slow? Is it up and down? How are you finding it?
As a whole, I'd say it's doing really well. There are bad sides to it, and you know yourself, Richard, because I'm fully with you on it, that social media is the worst thing ever invented. And I think that's playing a big role in certain aspects of detailing as a trade. But in general, everyone seems to be doing quite well. It must be doing well. There's a reason why there's that many people getting into it now, and throwing that detailer term around it at pretty much every road end you get to nowadays. If it wasn't doing so well, there wouldn't be people doing that.
Good. Interesting.
Do you think there's anything lacking in industry at the moment?
Yeah, rules and regulations.
No, go into it a bit more. What do you mean by that, Chris?
Basically what we touched upon earlier, there needs to be some kind of, if not governing body, there needs to be some industry standard where you have to meet a minimum requirement to be able to trade as a business. And the sticky issue we're going to have is, how do you determine the difference between a hobbyist or a trader? Again, that's something that we're probably going to have to look at further down the line, but at the minute we just need to try and get something in to make it more difficult to start a company up purely for fun. I nearly swore then. Purely for a bit of fun and a bit of giggle. We need to try and introduce some kind of control over product manufacturing, as we said earlier, because I think that's one big issue at the minute. Adam could make a fantastic citrus pre-wash, could be the best thing ever made, but is, in general terms, one of a lot of different voices. And unless you've got massive social media presence, you ain't going to sell in the trade that product. That's when you really have to start looking at doing it the old way, if you like, the way we used to when we started, face-to-face selling. And even if it means handing samples out to friends and family, their friends and family, doing it the old-fashioned way rather than look at this fantastic product on Facebook. We definitely need to do some controlling with that, because it's daft. It's absolutely daft how many people can just rock up with a snow foam that's not a snow foam or anything, and they don't have insurance to sell it, they don't have insurance to make it, and should it damage someone's car, the only person that's lost out is the person that's used it on their car.
And obviously down to user error, probably, as they say.
99% of the time, any failure of product is user error.
Yeah. Obviously, with all this standardization and trying to get like a set of rules and guidelines in place for sort of like having a detailing business, you've obviously got a lot of guys out there that are, some of them will call themselves weekend warriors, which are also really, really good. So I know you're not the ADA, so it's a difficult one to ask for a governing body, but I'm just sort of trying to look at, with some of these guys that are exceptionally good, that are weekend warriors, that have a full-time job during the week. How would you sort of foresee that sort of side of it going? Do you think they should be excluded because they're not full-time like you are, or Adam is, or I are? Because we sort of put our heart and souls into running a business, and you got some of these guys out there which are really fantastic weekend warriors, and they've got bigger media presences than what we are. And it's like, it's obviously frustrating for some people. And again, it's like you were saying probably earlier, focus on what you're doing. So how would you sort of view that side of it? It's an interesting one, I must admit, and a very difficult one. But
I don't think it is that difficult to sort, to be honest, because for lack of better terminology, the harder you make it to get someone relevant certifications, qualifications, whatever you want to call it, the more the half-hearted people, nearly swore again, will drop out. It's like the prices for us. So we don't do a great deal of maintenance washes because for me it's a time waster and you lose money on it for us. Yep. Because we don't have the time to do it sufficiently to make it worth doing. We do have customers that we do look after for that. Generally speaking, if I've got 2 maintenance washers, maybe 3 a week, I've done well out of that. And the main reason for that is we set our basic wash like 15 quid higher than the next cheapest person offering it. The reason for that is if you keep competing at the 10, 15 quid valets, you're going to get all the people that can only afford the 10, 15 quid valets that then want a 300 quid day one-hit wonder for 75 quid.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, in today's society, when you've got loud mouths on social media, it only takes one of those people to say, wouldn't do my car, to put a negative review and then get all his mates to do it.
Yep.
That's your last however many years up the Swanee for that one person. So I've found the best way to do it is price them out of it so they don't even bother looking at you. They'll go to the next page on Google.
Yep.
And I think it'll be the same way for weekend warriors. If you like now, there's nothing stopping, a hobbyist, weekend warrior, whatever you want to call them, joining the IDA, being a member of the IDA, sitting the certified detailer exam, skills validated exam, and doing it properly at the weekend around work. And there's nothing in the future stopping, because they've got like the manufacturers level, haven't they, at the IDA and things like that. They've got detailer and whatever. There's nothing stopping them adding a part-time / hobbyist section for them to sit certain exams specifically for that area. I've seen work done by weekend warriors that blow the doors off most detailers' work. They are fantastic people because if they are doing it properly at the weekends around their full-time job, it's something that they enjoy doing.
Yeah.
It's a passion.
Yeah.
And
that's what I was saying, yeah.
You see the difference in people that do it because they're bored and they just want likes on Instagram.
Yep.
You can tell. We know straight away by looking at that person whether they're doing it because they enjoy it or doing it because they want, 150 likes on Instagram. Yep. That's what we kind of need to sift through, if you like.
Yep.
It is a difficult one to sort through, and like I said, I'm nowhere near anywhere at the top of the IDA, so I can't speak for them. But if for me personally, that's what I'd do. I'd try and cater more for the hobbyist rather than a blanket everybody.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, definitely.
Yeah. Just to set the prices just right for certain things, and you'll find those that are doing it because they can rather than because they want to will just not bother. And then when it comes into sort of an industry standard and setting some compliance rules and things like that, I think then that's when it'll start dying out and it'll stop being more of anyone can pick a bucket of water up and wash a car under the pro detailer type of thing. But I think we're a few years off that yet.
Yeah, I think eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, it'll get there eventually. It's like with everything, it takes time, doesn't it? You almost sort of need it like a gas safe sort of certification sort of process, don't you, with it? And
Yeah.
it's, you've got to go through those processes, and, they've got the right sort of concept behind it. With once you've done your CD, you've got to do so many hours and so on and so forth to keep that going and to renew and things. So, it's like with everything, everything will improve as it progresses as well. So the more the older the organization gets, the better it'll get as well, and the more stringent those tests hopefully will get, because obviously technology changes as well. So it's like, I sort of look at, when I did my CD thing, I look at it and think, and then I look at things even though I've only just done it, it's still, you could tell that it was written some time ago compared to what it is today, in my opinion. So everything needs to change and go forward with it, and time will evolve with it, and things will change for the better, I'm sure, as it goes forward, and some things will come, stricter, and that's how it should be.
I think the CD exam for me, the 10 exams you have to do, I think they were very clever, because they weren't massively difficult to put people off, but they weren't ridiculously easy to the point if you just switched off and did it, you'd pass them.
Yep.
And again, I think that fits in perfectly with the people who actually want to do it, because even though we find them easy because we've been detailing a long time. But if you've got a new starter that's wanting to progress a fresh business, them questions might come across as quite difficult, particularly when they throw in random curveballs. So they're going on about metal polishing.
Yep.
And they ask you about using glass cleaner on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go, "We can't use glass cleaner on Chrome because it's glass cleaner." It's like, no, you can. You can use glass cleaner on Chrome as a final prep.
Yep.
And I think that was done very, very cleverly to not be too difficult to put people like me off, because I'm totally useless in exam conditions. I said to Adam before doing this, I'm quite a nervous person about it. I don't like doing the whole talky thing, and I'm the same in exams. So I was really stressed about sitting that CD exam. But as soon as I'd gone through the sort of like pre-exam talk with Alan, who explained, roughly, and it is roughly what might come up, and certain terminologies that need to be addressed, because obviously it is American, so we need to use some American terminologies and things. So I think it was very cleverly done, because once I started, I felt quite at ease. I looked at the first question, it was like, well, that's nowhere near as hard as I thought it was going to be. I got like 8 questions in, it was like, that's a curveball. If I'd have just like shut off and blindly clicked, I'd have got that one wrong. Yep. If you do that, there's 2 questions every exam that I found that are curveballs like that, which would make you fail that exam had you got the wrong answers on those 2 questions. So like I said, I think it's very cleverly done to not be too complicated, but not allow you to switch off.
Yeah.
It's a couple you need to read twice before answering.
Yeah, definitely got to read them properly. That's for sure. Especially with the way they're worded as well.
Yeah, but like you said, Chris, with the American thing doesn't help sometimes.
The terminologies in America is totally different to here, isn't it? And it makes it very difficult to sort of understand what the really. You have to sort of almost go and research it to make sure what you're thinking is correct as well.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult. I mean, day to day, I still use the terminologies that we've always used. But again, you ask 10 UK detailers what a snow foam is, and you'll get 10 different answers, which is something we definitely need to change. There needs to be a set definition for a snow foam. It's the only way you can get a qualification settled, unless you have a set of terminologies that are used throughout. You can't have a correct answer to a question. If someone asks you a question in an exam, what is a snow foam? If there's 1,000 different answers, there isn't one correct one. But the first thing I did is I printed off on the IDA page. They do like an A to Z for products and terminology and stuff.
Terminology, I remember that.
I printed those off and I carried them with me, and I sat and I went through every single one to work out which one was different. So it's like their micro scratches are what we call swirl marks. Their swirl marks is what we call buffer trails. Right, weird. But if there's ones like that, I highlighted them. So then when I was going through, I knew which ones were the ones that I needed to adjust my language to for the test. because like I said, I was really nervous, and I was like, I'm going to get tested on all of this. I'm going to get tested on all of this. And when it comes to the test, none of it come up. But I find when you start looking at how to start a new qualification, particularly for a school, which is, if you want to learn to be a detailer, there's nothing in the future to say that you can't go to a Nottinghamshire college to study detailing around a detailing job.
Yep.
But to do that, you have to have a set of terminologies that the examining board, who, let's face it, when they mock them exams, will not have a clue what they're looking at.
Yep.
They need to know what's right and what's wrong. And until we've nailed down the language, it won't be possible.
No. Which
is why I like what the IDA is doing.
Yep.
I preferred it if it had been the Americans learning the English, but they started it. It's their game. Unfortunately, we've got to play their ball.
Yep, definitely. So obviously, snow foam. Tell us terminology. What is it?
Oh, on the spot.
On the spot. Like I said, I still use my generic everyday thing. It's just a pre-wash for removing loose dust, dirt, not embedded dirt off your panel before you actually do the contact wash. But then I throw the curveball in and say I don't actually use snow foam for that anymore, because I just use it as extra lubricants during the contact wash.
Then that's when your problem of industry standard comes in.
Yep.
People like you, Chris.
Oh, genuinely, I would love to be a part of the team at the IDA that does that, but there's a lot more knowledgeable people in the trade that would do a much better job than me for that. And I've got no issues with admitting that. There's Alan for one, Mark Leddy for another. The knowledge between them, they probably forgot more than I know. So there's no point in me, being elbows up, really aggressive, wanting to get into doing all of this when, them guys have been teaching people how to do it for longer than I've been actually detailing. So.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Mm.
We have a closing question, Chris. It kind of wraps things up. It's a question that we is when we started playing this back, we'd asked everyone, so we've now used this as a closing question. We have tweaked it slightly. It's, if you could tell yourself when you was first starting your business, one piece of information that you know today, what would that have been?
I don't know how to put it politely without giving too much away.
It's only me, you, and Richard. Oh.
Take one step back before leaping forward. Because if you take one step back and have a proper think about what decisions you're making, you'll avoid a really bad one. Don't be scared to take the leap, but just be sure that when you take that leap, you are going in the right direction.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's a bit of a running theme this now, though, Rich.
Yeah, definitely. I was waiting for you to say something about like what nearly everybody says. Oh, that's a very difficult one. Why would you ask me that question? Nearly everybody says that. That's a real hard one, is that?
It's probably the hardest question to ask, and I've been trying to work on an answer to it because I kind of know it coming up from listening to the last few.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to answer because there's so many things you could say to that.
Everyone says that, yeah.
There's only one that really matters, and as long as you are 100% sure that you're moving forward with whatever decision you make, there's no need to worry about making that decision. You just got to sometimes take a step back, take a breath, think about it, and then go.
Yeah, you don't plan to fail, do you? That's the thing.
No, but on the flip side of that, you only learn by doing it wrong.
Exactly. Yep. And if you can't learn from doing it wrong, then step aside and do something different, don't you? It's as simple as that. You've got to learn from your mistakes. And if you don't make mistakes, then you're not learning, in my opinion, anyway. So
no,
you've got to make the mistakes to learn.
No, it's like when we all start detailing. If you've not burnt through paint yet, you've been detailing 2 years, you're doing it wrong.
Yep. Oh yeah. Done that. Yeah. I've done it. I'm going to admit I've done it.
No, I've done it. Yeah.
I've done it. Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, the first time I did it was my own car. So
First time I did it was my car, but I did it I weren't paying attention that much whilst I was doing a Nissan GTR once, and it had a really poor paint repair on the top of the rear quarter, just above the swage line where the rear quarter light is. And I weren't really paying attention. I got the rotary going. In my own world, not really paying attention, right where this poor repair was, the pad had cut through. But, luckily, we can paint stuff, so
it's been repaired already as well.
Well, I'd already pre-warned the customer before I started. I said, look, this is a really bad repair. I can't guarantee that it's not going to fall off when I go near it. So I just phoned him up and I said, look, I've gone through where that repair was. It's going to the body shop tomorrow to be repaired. He was like, yeah, no worries.
I think the main thing, admitting it, isn't it? It's, you get some people that will try to hide it up, and I think it's having the balls basically to admit it, and expect you more for it. It's as simple as that.
You'll always find that if you tell the truth, particularly when you've done something wrong, then people are more willing to accept the mistake rather than kicking off, having a go, and then uncovering all the bits you tried to weasel out of. So best policy is just to hands up, you've messed up, and as long as you go with a plan to correct it, then they seem to be all right.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, we have with the business of people, staff make mistakes. It's like, what can you do? It's happened. No point shouting, bawling and screaming about it. We just got to address it and get on with it and correct it and, go forward with it. It's as simple as that. It's no point getting stressed over it. What's happened. You can't correct it. You just got to move forward and make sure it doesn't happen again. And it's, you sit down and you learn from it, don't you? It's as simple as that.
Shouting gets nowhere. It just makes the air in the room really hot. So again, if something bad happens or if someone makes a mistake, best thing to do, again, take a step back, take a breath, because it helps you think about what you're about to deal with, and then you find that you're more rational when you deal with it. So
yeah, exactly. Definitely. Good. I think that was quite good. Enjoyed it.
I just want to touch on some feedback that we've been having before we grab Chris's social media links. Again, thank you to everyone who has been in touch, sending feedback. It's been brilliant. And it's not always good feedback. People have been telling us where we're going wrong, which is what we need to learn from. The really nice thing is people have actually been saying, have you tried doing this? Have you tried doing that? Rather than just saying, this is wrong. One thing we have tried really hard to improve is the sound quality, which a lot of people have said. Last week, so on the Rupes one, we did have a bit of a technical issue just before we start recording, so we've got to apologize for that, but I think we have cracked it now on the sound quality. One thing that I had get a haircut, which was really useful. Thank you to that one person. So that I have actually had a haircut now, so cheers for that one. And there's two things that have come up. A couple of people have mentioned IDA to us. We mention IDA every time, and it's soon that me and Richard have left out questions now. We don't mention IDA anymore. If, like you have tonight, Chris, it was starting to sound a little bit like an IDA show. That's the reason we're not putting questions in now, asking about the idea. We're going to let the person. The thing that's getting me the most with the IDA stuff, Rich, and I don't know if you found this, sometimes we don't even know that person's in the idea. Like with the Rupes one.
I thought it was in the idea. Yeah, no idea.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not even fussed. If it sounds like an idea thing, it means we're talking to the right people.
Yeah.
That to me says a lot, that all these great people like yourself, Chris, that we're having on are members of the idea. It says it all.
Yeah. And obviously sound quality, we've got, again, it's no excuse. I'm at home in my dining room. You're at home in your living room. And I'm the guy here with with the recording side of it, but you're also recording your end, from what you're doing. So we got video for YouTube. So you are going to get differences in there. And, we're not in a salubrious £100,000 studio or £1 million studio. We are literally doing this from home, from our dining rooms. And while I'm doing that, I'm literally, all my family are tucked away and they're like, they can't come into the TV because the TV is over there somewhere. It is actually on, but the sound is off, but that's where it is. And I've just got that behind me, and that way it's a conservatory, and we're just at home.
Yeah.
And they can't come down and make tea and coffee, because if they did, all you're going to hear is the bloody kettle going. And they've all had showers before this was going, and they're all drying hairs, and I'm not, obviously. And it's like, get it done before this starts, please, because you're just going to hear the interference. But we're just at home. We're just a couple of guys at home. It's not a business. We're literally just doing this, because we enjoy it. We love what we do, and it's just helping people throughout the world and the industry. And I just love it. It's great, and I don't care how long it takes us to do it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's just passion. There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it. There's one thing that got mentioned before about one person again who said you're doing it to make money. Now that one person, you are totally correct. We are doing this to make money for everyone in the industry, to rise that sinking ship sort of thing. There's no money for me and Richard getting deposited into PayPal. Just because we had Chris on, he's not going to slip us 20 quid sort of thing. It's definitely not. It's take the auction, man. But there's no money in it. It is just purely to build. I mean, if anyone's seen the new logo, it's got what we stand on for at the bottom of it, which is business, industry, and community. And that's all we're doing it for. I just wanted to touch on that feedback, and I really appreciate everyone doing the feedback. It's great to have people messaging and just saying, "Oh, brilliant job, really enjoyed it." And then the people who have got good feedback to give, that it might be you need to improve. As long as there's some value to it, I'm more than happy for that.
Yeah, we'll listen to any feedback, good or bad. At the end of the day, it's it's how we learn and move forward, really. So, yeah, and then, if you've got feedback for us, Chris, after this, by all means, inbox me, or Adam, and we can address it and deal with it. Simple.
Well, Chris, wrapping things up then, what is your social media that people can get hold of you or want to look at this awesome business of yours?
So it's at the Classicwise Collection on Instagram and on Facebook, or you can go to www.classicwise.co.uk.
That's easy enough, isn't it?
Twitter or anything like that, or is it no Twitter?
There's no Twitter, no. There's none of that. I don't like technology, Richard.
That's okay. LinkedIn, no. So technology, no.
No.
Okay, cool. So there you go. Facebook and Instagram, and obviously classicwise.co.uk website. So hop on there, and there's obviously all your contact details on there, how they can get in touch with you, and dog and bone, or
everything's on there. Yeah,
snail mail or email, it's all there.
It's all there, all on the website, and all on them too. There.
Wicked, excellent. And one American gentleman said to me, his favorite saying is from me, brilliant.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a lot easier than I thought it was.
Yeah, no,
appreciate you coming on, Chris.
We'll put the guns down now, so you can relax now. So
that's all right. I can kick these two blokes out of the house now, can I?
We'll relieve you of them. Yeah, they can go. So yeah, you can. You're free now. So yeah. So
it's been brilliant, Chris.
From me, Richard, and that.
Thank you very much. And I know you're a busy man, but appreciate your time.
Yeah, much appreciated, Chris. Thank you very much, mate.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.